when we ask clients what their ROR is, return on result, that's very, very important to us because we want to design a plan to help you live that out. And it might be a plan that has a less rate of return, but helps you with more certainty live that dream out. And I would much rather go back to the result that people want than some metric that you can't even spend. This is BetterWealth with Caleb Williams. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the BetterWealth podcast. I'm here with Jeremy Roothouse, and we are going to break down a powerful question that we get asked every single day. And so please listen up, buckle up, because this is going to be a great episode. And essentially, the question is this, Jeremy. And I just had someone that I was talking to today who we were talking, and they're like, okay, Caleb, what is the rate of return of the AND asset again? And I could tell they were thinking about this in the paradigm of, I'm only getting maybe this rate of return, but I don't even see the value in this because I could be putting my money in this investment. And I just made the statement, and I want you to unpack this because maybe there's something that I'm saying that is not translating. But I said address their name. I almost did that on air. And then I said, it's getting this rate of return, and we can go through the illustration. I would love to do that. And this person did not care about the life insurance benefit at all, which I know that you have an opinion about, but some people that are watching this do not care about the death benefit, okay? And what I want to do when I sit down with them is explain the power of the AND asset, because they were overfunding life insurance, and they were a business owner, and there's a lot of reasons for them to even bank with their life insurance, but they had a lot of money in the market. They had some annuities that they had their financial junk drawer. Mm-hmm. And so what I came along is I created a foundation where not only that they could invest in some of their business and have some liquidity there, but this asset will help them so much just unlock all the other assets that they have. And so, yes, I can give you an answer. The rate of return that you'll get will be 3%. And yeah, I could say it's tax-free and all these things. But what I really want them to understand is by you asking that question, I'm giving you an answer that's addressing one benefit. And it's the benefit that everyone wants to talk about, but it's the benefit that I think is so frustrating because you cannot spend a rate of return. So with that, Jeremy, let's have a dialogue because, again, I really want people to get this. And I know that we had Wade Fowle on the podcast, and he has a whole book on life insurance, and it's not just on life insurance, it's on the retirement disaster and what kind of things you need to do to avoid the retirement disaster.
Sure. I think in that episode, or an episode as of late, you talk about the mountain example, and if you've hung around financial planning or anything for any length of time, you've heard the mountain example, right? We climb the mountain, and then we come down the mountain, okay? Yep. This dialogue is about why is rate of return asked time and time again. What's the rate of return? What's the rate of return? What's the rate of return? Well, regardless of what amount of money you amass, at a certain point in time, you have to consider, how am I going to use it?
Yes.
And the model here at Better...
And the opportunity cost of just accumulating and amassing that money and not doing anything other than growing it. Fair. In that vehicle. But that's more of the banking. It's essentially like, okay, you're spending 30 years growing your money, and what is the opportunity cost of not accessing that? And you're just talking about, okay, let's not even talk about that. You're saying you have a lump of money at the end of the day. How are you going to best spend that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and while there may be a tool or a vehicle that allows me to get a 8, 10, 15, 20% rate of return, does that vehicle also allow me a function with which to use that money?
Yep.
Because you cannot consume a rate of return, and you can't consume equity in something.
Yep.
You have to do something to that thing first, and then you have to spend it. Whether you put it in a bank account, whether you store it in an AND asset, whether you put it in an annuity, whether you have a pension, those things are coming to you via some sort of transfer mechanism. And I want to back up here just a second. It sounds like the frustration is that you're asking the wrong question. When you say, what's the rate of return? It's not a bad question. It's just not all of the question.
Yep. That's exactly it. And
Okay.
it's like it's asked in such a way that's like, okay, I'll get the answer and then I'll have everything I need to know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. And I would make
Sure.
the statement, even if the and asset gave you a -% each year, the positive result in your lifetime
Perfect.
would outperform what another account would do at 6%.
So let's maybe address that this way. How important is strategy when you're looking at not only growing but also
important.
consuming what
Yep.
it is that you've made over the course of your life?
It's incredibly important.
Okay. So if we look at strategy and you need a certain pot of money to do a certain thing, does it matter what tool does that if it does that thing that you need the money to do?
No.
Okay, so what's the problem? Right? So maybe this is us getting better. Maybe this is the industry getting better in not touting things like rate of return, not touting things like access to capital, not touting those things, but saying, what does this client want? Which, so clarity.
Yep.
What do we want? What life do we want to live? Now, there's a price tag attached to that in the community and the economy that we live in. If I want to live this lifestyle, I want to do these things, then it takes X amount of dollars. So because it takes X amount of dollars, what strategy do I need with the resources that I have to get me that lifestyle over the course of time? And then we take a pot of money, a block of money, and we do something with it. Now, if we need to employ a tool, it could be as simple as putting it in a mason jar and putting it under the sink.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the most efficient way.
Yeah, because you might not be spending it.
to use money over the course of a 2 or 3 year period.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't matter. Okay? But there's other pots of money along with this particular strategy. So we almost void the idea of rate of return when we refocus the conversation on what do I want? What amount of money does it take to facilitate that lifestyle? And then how can I break up these chunks of money and have them do a certain thing? Well, if a pot of money, $100,000, needs to last for X amount of years, you need access to it. It needs to have a reasonable rate of return to keep up with inflation so that you're not actually losing money over the course of time. And this particular tool does that. Buy that tool. Because in your strategy for what you want, that makes sense. Does it matter that it's an annuity or an ETF or life insurance or any of the tools that are out there? No. What matters is that it does what I want now. Now, I may need a tool that has a greater rate of return because I'm looking at a pot of money that I really would like to aggressively grow. Well, I would go back and say, what are you an expert at? Caleb's probably not going to put money into cattle because he doesn't know anything about cattle, I can tell you, right? Even how to cook them. So that being said, cattle would be a poor decision based off of where Caleb Williams is going. Now, that being said, if you have a cattle rancher, a lifetime cattle rancher, their greatest return for the thing that they want could be investing.
But I'm not even talking about but I'm not even talking about the access and control. I'm talking about, let's just say, Jeremy, you stick money into a life insurance policy. It never breaks even.
Okay.
So it's like the world's worst life insurance policy. 30 years later, you have
that's pretty terrible.
You still haven't broke even. Okay, so everyone could say that, okay, that's a pretty terrible, that's not efficient. Like, I would cringe because it's like, man, we could do such a better job. Well, just stick with me here.
Okay.
But that life insurance policy helps you unlock your 401k, meaning helps you get twice as much cash flow versus just because of the volatility buffer.
So
just hear me out here because I want to
break that down.
Okay. So you have a 401k. Let's say you have $200,000 in your 401k, and you can spend a whole lot more money if you have a strategy. Going back to what you're saying, if you have a strategy for what you're going to do in the down years, and let's say you could potentially convert this to a pension, to an annuity, and you have a bunch of annuity options. Well, to make this episode not super long, there's different annuity options that give you certain more money up front, less money, but gives it more protection to your spouse or something. And by having life insurance, you might be able to get more money up front while protecting your asset. Let's say you have real estate. Let's say you don't want to necessarily like pass on real estate to the next generation. What if you want to create options? What if you want to sell that real estate? What if you want to sell that real estate to create a pension? What if you want to keep that real estate? And who's going to pay the taxes? It gives you options. Business gives you options. Like, what I want people to know is, let's just say this life insurance thing didn't even give you a rate of return, like was the worst policy of all time.
Okay.
And the end result was you got a lot more cash flow or freedom or time freedom because this thing enhanced everything else. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not even approaching the rate of return. I'm not approaching the banking effect. I'm not talking about the quote unquote and asset throughout your life. I'm just talking about it in retirement.
So it sounds like what you're saying, if something unlocks other opportunities that I may not have had if I didn't have that thing, then it's
valuable.
Yes. Good word.
And we're gonna be better as a company to better explain this. I think it's tough because rate of return is easy because you can answer that. But we as a company really need to take extreme ownership and say, hey, it's our fault that these questions are being asked, because if they're being asked, that means we're not doing a good job addressing them. And so that's just me. I mean, we're doing these episodes because this is very much of a documentation of the things that we work on behind the scenes. And this is literally one of the things that we're working on. It's like, how do we create a scenario where this question never gets asked again? And it's not your fault asking this. It's not our client's fault asking this. It's our fault because we need to create a system. We need to explain this better, because I assure you, when set up and used properly, life insurance is an amazing place to store capital because it unlocks so many other things in the future. Anything that you want to add? I mean, we could literally talk about this for another 10 minutes. I also don't want to bore the listener at home.
I think part of this for us is having a cohesive set of education that you can reference and refer.
Yep.
Part of that is this podcast. The episode that you did with Wade the other day, amazing episode, and you highlight it, articulates how it is so powerful to have a market volatility buffer. And that's a cool phrase to say, if the market sucks, where else do I get money from?
Correct.
Right?
And not taking money from something that's at a loss.
Right. If you had retired in April of 2020, would it have been valuable to have a different place to get capital from?
Yep. 100%.
I think the answer would be most obviously yes, because the market convulsed, and when you went to take your first withdrawal, you would have severely damaged what you would have been able to create 30 years from now. And go back, it's from September 23rd, because I referenced it for a client today, and listen to what Mr. Fow has to say with regards to the catastrophic impact of taking a distribution or taking money out of, because really you're dipping into principal at a certain point in time, which prohibits your growth moving forward. So I hope that kind of wraps up what we're trying to say.
I think we go back to when we ask clients what their ROR is, return on result. That's very, very important to us, because we want to design a plan to help you live that out. And it might be a plan that has a less rate of return, but helps you with more certainty live that dream out. And I would much rather go back to the result that people want than some metric that you can't even spend. So with that, thank you so much for listening, everybody. We appreciate you sharing this message, you liking these videos, and you continuing to help share the message, as we want to help people live more intentionally. Like, the reason why we do these podcasts daily is because we want to be an encouragement. We want to be there with you, helping you be more intentional. And we understand that if you get this money thing figured out, it's possible. And so we get super encouraged when we get to hear success story after success story, and people that are literally coming in with one mindset, and as they work through with a wealth coach, they're changing their mindset. And it's just so exciting, Jeremy. And like, I just want that to come out, because I think sometimes we're always talking about like, you can't do this, you need to change your mindset, you're better off dead, or and we really, really don't mean that, because we share that because we want this to land, and we realize that sometimes if we have straight up honest conversations, people listen more. And so with that, any last words?
Yeah. So I'm going to give credit to my dad. He said, Jeremy, families are going to always argue about family, money, and sex. And I like to say that we usually address 2 of those in our phone calls.
All right. With that,
so we get very real is what I'm saying. Get to the heart of the matter.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the BetterWealth podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with the people that you know and love.